Hey folks, welcome to another Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where we discuss things of interest to the knife maker. In today's discussion, hand sanding. Let's go down to the table and talk about all the tools and tips to make this more bearable. Okay, I've got all my key hand sanding gear all set out here. Obviously, we got sandpaper. I'll talk about that. Some lubricant. I use paper towel, just clean up, and then my knife vise, super key, important to me. I did a separate video on this a couple of Triple T's ago, so go check that out. Super useful. So let's start talking about abrasives. Me personally, I like these Duragold rolls. You get a lot of sandpaper. I think these are 15, 18 bucks, but you get a lot. And I like it mostly because it's got the adhesive back on it. If I can get it off. So it's sticky. So I tend to use this little steel block. And I like it because I can just stick it here. I can fold up the edge and I'll tear this off. Sometimes I'll just spray that lightly, but it kind of sticks to the block. I like that. Okay, it doesn't move. I don't have to worry about it. And then when I want to go to the next one, I'll just stick it to the next one. So I like adhesive back. Some people prefer just regular sandpaper. The other reason I like this, it's pretty heavyweight. Okay, it's pretty thick, which means it's pretty forgiving. Meaning, sometimes you're sanding away and you're on an edge of something and you kind of wear through the sandpaper. If it's really thin sandpaper, you're going to wear through and you're going to actually, like this is, it's kind of sharp here. You're actually going to start digging this into your work. With this sandpaper being so thick, with really stiff backing, it helps you not do that. It gives, you got a little more protection there. So, that's what I like in sandpaper. So sandpaper selection, when I do hand sanding, I typically come off the grinder maybe 80, maybe 120. I usually don't come off the grinder much higher than that. Because my homemade grinder is not super accurate, and I got a new grinder on the way. You guys will see soon. Maybe I'll be more comfortable going to higher grits on that. So I do a lot of hand sanding. I start at 220. My regiment is 220, 400, 800, 1,000. Pretty much all my blades will get that, especially the Damascus ones will get finished at 1,500. So 220, 400, 800, 1,000, and maybe 1,500 on the Damascus. So let's talk about technique. When I'm sanding, let's pretend this is my blade here. When it comes off the grinder at 80, for example, all of the grind marks are going to be going this way, okay? Because you're going to be grinding it like this. I'll always start, because it's just the easiest, and I will grind the first one this way. Okay, and I'll be going against the grind line. So it's really easy to see when you get those grind marks out because you're going opposite those grind lines. If you were to go with the grind lines at any point, you never really see when you get them out. So that is the number one tip in hand sanding is always go somewhat against your lines from the last grit. Either it's from the grinder or from your last hand sanding grit. Okay, so the first one I'll go this way, and then when I go to 400, what I will do is I will start going at a 45 like this. Okay, so I'm going 45 against the last lines, and that will show, you will easily see, because you just kind of tilt your head, or especially I have a little moving light, I'll put the light up on a certain angle, and all of the scratches will really jump out at you. You will see them. And especially every once in a while, I'll spray it with Windex, wipe it off. And right before I go to sand anything, I'm going to give a couple of squirts of Windex and just make sure there's some lubrication so I'm getting that material is kind of coming off and not just sticking to your sandpaper. So opposing strokes. So I will go 220 this way, I'll go 400 this way, and then I'll go back to lengthwise on 800, and then 1,000, and I'll usually end going lengthwise. So even if I'm done at 1,000 and I've gone this way, once I'm done, then I'll go back 1,000 again and go the other way with the same sandpaper, just to make sure I get it all out. I mentioned a steel block, and I've said this many times in other videos. I recommend you use something hard. Sometimes I use a file, just because it has ridges and it can be a little more aggressive sometimes. It's the same notion as using a serrated wheel on your grinder. Using a file with sandpaper, it just makes it a little more aggressive, especially for the lower grits. Don't recommend you use a piece of wood. Wood is soft, and what it will do is, especially if you have things like, if it's not a full flat grind, you have a plunge line, you have like where your primary bevel starts, just the softness in the wood will start to round over those edges. If you have a false edge, especially, you're going to round over those false edges. You want those edges to be nice and crisp. So use a really hard piece of material, like a piece of steel. Even aluminum would be fine. It's just use something that's going to have give you a crisp edge. When I'm hand sanding, I will usually always do the flats first. I'll do the flats, and then I'll do my bevel, and then I'll come back and I'll do just once over on the flats again. It just works for me. That's what I like to do. Some people do it different ways. What I will do, I mentioned, I don't use wood. What I will do sometimes is maybe when I get up to 800 or 1,000, I will take a piece of leather and put it between the sandpaper and the block. Again, only if I'm at 800 or 1,000. So I'm not going to wash out any lines. I'm really just blending at that point. And the softness of the leather on a really, really high grit lets you blend in those lines. I'm not worried about, it's not a 220. I'm not going to roll over any of the lines. So that's another tip, to use a piece of leather on your really high grits to blend. So let's talk about plunge lines, because those can be really difficult. So on this knife, you're going to have a plunge line right here. Okay, this line right here. Okay, so it's going to kind of swoop up right here. So there are a couple of ways to do this. What I've done before is taken a round file, like a chainsaw file, and wrap the sandpaper around it and just kind of roll it right here. It's really time consuming. But it works. You kind of go down, you do your flats here, and then when you're doing this part, you just kind of round the file and just kind of spin the file up in here. Another way that I've done it that works really well is, obviously you don't do this with the adhesive one. I usually leave the backing on this when I do it. So what you can do is get a piece of round stock that matches your radius, like whether it's a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or whatever is going to match your radius. If you watch my cleaver video, when I did the integral bolster, which has a very big, I think it's a 3/4 inch radius on that. What I do is I take that, let's pretend this pen is something, I will push that against there, and then I will, this is locked in the knife vise, so the knife doesn't move, but it's hard to do like this, but I will take it, push this down, and then I will pull this up like this. So that's a really good technique, and I do it on occasion, especially for integral bolsters. So just do that. So that works really well for bolsters. There are some grinders, like the new Broadbeck that's on the way, has a special attachment for doing integral bolsters. So I'm excited to give that a try at some point. It's just a little kind of a top platen where the belt kind of comes down like this, and there's a radius here, and you can put different wheels there. So excited to try that out. But not everyone has one of those. So try the rolling technique on a piece of round stock. My biggest tip on hand sanding, don't get discouraged. Keep at it. Don't give up. Like sometimes you're going to, I'm just so tired of doing this. I just want it to be over. At that point, take a break. Go do something else, because if you rush it, like, I'm done, I'm going to go to 400, you're going to get all the way up to 400, 800, and then you're going to see some scratches that it's going to make you have to go all the way back to 220. So if you don't take your time and do the right progression, you just won't get a good product. There's no shortcutting this. Like, you have to put in the time. So be prepared to do it and really put in the time. I would say, of the two things I see on Facebook when beginners show knives, the two most obvious beginner things is it's not properly finished with hand sanding and there's an issue with the bevel. But not being hand sanded nicely or having big scratches, or, you can correct a lot of things with hand sanding. You can smooth out bevels. Hand sanding is important, and don't shortcut it. I hope you got some good tips out of this video on hand sanding. I make your life a little easier. I've done a lot of hand sanding lately on the Wakizashi project and the new special project, and we're going to take a break from the Wakizashi builds, and this Sunday we're going to introduce the special project. So I'm really excited about that. So make sure you tune in Sunday, check out what the new project is. I'm really excited about it. Thanks for watching, folks. If you haven't, please subscribe, give this video a like, and we'll see you on the next one.